Welcome to the most insane corporate collapse in modern history. We're talking about a $32 billion company that turned out to be completely fake. I'm not exaggerating here. This thing went from being worth more than most countries' entire economies to absolute zero in less than a week. And the craziest part, almost nobody saw it coming. So we got this guy, Sam Bankman-Fried, and he's running this crypto exchange called FTX. Now, this isn't just some random startup operating out of somebody's garage. We're talking about the third largest cryptocurrency exchange in the entire world. Over 1 million users, billions of dollars flowing through this platform every single day. And Sam himself, dude was worth $16 billion. $16 billion. That's more money than some small countries make in a year. But here's where it gets absolutely bonkers. Every single penny of that $16 billion, gone, wiped out. And not just his money, but billions of dollars belonging to regular people who trusted this platform with their life savings. We're talking about grandparents who put their retirement funds into this thing, college students who invested their student loan money, families who trusted FTX with money they couldn't afford to lose. Now, before we dive into how this whole house of cards came crashing down, let me paint you a picture of just how legitimate this company appeared to be. Because that's what makes this story so absolutely insane. FTX wasn't some sketchy operation that you'd expect to be a scam. This thing had Tom Brady as their spokesperson. Tom freaking Brady. The guy who won 7 Super Bowls was telling America that FTX was the most trusted way to buy and sell crypto. They had Stephen Curry, Larry David, Shaquille O'Neal, and a bunch of other A-list celebrities doing commercials for them during the Super Bowl. We're talking about premium advertising slots that cost millions of dollars. These weren't cheap late-night infomercials. This was prime-time, big-budget marketing that made FTX look like the Apple of cryptocurrency exchanges. And the investors. Holy crap, the investors. We're talking about Tiger Global Management, BlackRock, SoftBank, Sequoia Capital. These aren't random venture capitalists throwing money at anything with the word crypto in it. These are some of the most sophisticated investment firms on the planet. Firms that manage trillions of dollars and have armies of analysts whose entire job is to spot red flags before they invest a single penny. FTX raised over $1.8 billion from these institutional investors. $1.8 billion. And about $1.1 billion of that came from roughly 90 different American investment firms. So we're not talking about 1 or 2 investors getting fooled. We're talking about dozens of the smartest financial minds in the world all looking at this company and saying, yeah, this looks legit. But here's the thing that's gonna blow your mind. While all these celebrities are doing commercials, while all these investment firms are throwing billions at the company, while over 1 million customers are trusting FTX with their money, Sam Bankman-Fried is systematically stealing every penny he can get his hands on. See, Sam didn't just run FTX, he also had this trading company called Alameda Research. And this is where things get really twisted. Because what nobody knew at the time was that Sam was using FTX customer deposits to fund his trading operations at Alameda. Customer money that was supposed to be sitting safely in FTX accounts was actually being funneled over to Alameda so Sam could make risky trades and investments. And we're not talking about small amounts here. Prosecutors later discovered that up to $9 billion in customer deposits were missing. $9 billion. That's more than the GDP of some entire countries, just gone, transferred from FTX customer accounts over to Alameda Research without anyone's permission. But Sam wasn't just using this money for trading. Nah, this dude was living it up. We're talking about political contributions, personal expenses, investments in other companies. He was basically treating customer deposits like his own personal piggy bank. And the worst part, he set up the whole system so that nobody would notice. Here's how insane this gets. Sam and his team actually wrote special computer code that would allow Alameda Research to withdraw unlimited amounts of cryptocurrency from FTX, unlimited. While regular customers had strict limits and would get automatically liquidated if their accounts went negative, Alameda could have a negative balance of up to $65 billion using customer funds. $65 billion. Let that sink in for a second. This backdoor in the system meant that Alameda could spend money that didn't exist, money that belonged to regular people who thought their funds were safely stored on the exchange. And this wasn't some accidental oversight. This was deliberately programmed into the system at Sam's direction. Multiple employees at FTX actually discovered this backdoor and flagged it to management. But instead of fixing the problem, the company just ignored it. And get this, some of the employees who raised concerns about this special code, they got fired. Fired for trying to protect customer funds. That's how deep this corruption went. The craziest part is that FTX was promoting itself as the safe, responsible choice in the crypto world. They had sophisticated automated risk measures, or at least that's what they claimed. They were supposed to be the antithesis of the Wild West mentality that plagued other crypto exchanges. Sam was out there giving interviews about how important it was to protect customers and build trust in the industry. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, he's systematically looting customer accounts to fund his lifestyle and his risky trading bets. And because of the way the system was set up, with this special backdoor code, none of the normal accounting or compliance systems would catch what was happening. $10 billion moved from FTX to Alameda, and it didn't trigger a single internal red flag. But every house of cards eventually comes crashing down, and for FTX, that moment came in early November 2022. It started with some investigative journalism that exposed the financial relationship between FTX and Alameda Research. A leaked balance sheet showed that Alameda was heavily dependent on FTX's native token, something called FTT. Now, this should have been a massive red flag for anyone paying attention, because if Alameda Research, which was supposed to be this sophisticated trading firm, was propping up its entire operation with tokens from Sam's other company, that meant the whole thing was basically a circular scheme. But at the time, most people didn't understand the implications of what they were seeing. Then Changpeng Zhao, the CEO of Binance, which was FTX's biggest competitor, decided to make a move that would bring the whole thing crashing down. Zhao announced that Binance would sell all of its holdings in FTT tokens, $580 million worth. And that announcement triggered what can only be described as a crypto bank run. Suddenly, everyone wanted to get their money out of FTX at the same time, and that's when the whole facade started to crumble. Because when customers started demanding their deposits back, Sam realized he had a massive problem. The money wasn't there. $9 billion in customer funds had been transferred to Alameda, and Alameda had lost most of it on bad trades and risky investments. Sky Investments. FTX was seeing $5 billion in withdrawal requests on November 6th alone. $5 billion in a single day. And Sam was scrambling like crazy to find that money. He was ordering Alameda Research to sell whatever assets they had left. He was reaching out to other crypto firms trying to get emergency funding. He was basically doing everything he could to plug an $8 billion hole in his company's finances. But here's the thing about bank runs. Once they start, they're almost impossible to stop. Because even if you have the money, the sheer volume of people trying to get their funds out at the same time can overwhelm any system. And Sam didn't have the money. Most of it was gone, lost in Alameda's trading disasters and Sam's personal spending sprees. So on November 8th, FTX did something that should have been absolutely unthinkable for a supposedly legitimate financial institution. They blocked customers from withdrawing their own money. Just like that. If you had funds on FTX, you couldn't get them out. The withdrawal option just disappeared from the website. Imagine logging into your bank account and finding out that the bank has decided you can't access your own money anymore. That's essentially what happened to over 1 million FTX customers. People who had trusted this platform with their life savings suddenly found themselves locked out of their own accounts, and the panic that followed was absolutely insane. Social media exploded with people sharing screenshots of their blocked withdrawal attempts. Customers were posting videos of themselves crying, talking about how they lost their kids' college funds, their retirement savings, everything they'd worked for. The human cost of Sam's fraud was becoming impossible to ignore. But Sam wasn't done making bad decisions yet. Instead of coming clean about what had happened, he tried to save face by negotiating a potential bailout with Binance. Yeah, the same Binance whose CEO had triggered this whole mess by announcing they'd sell their FTT tokens. Sam was so desperate that he was willing to sell his company to his biggest competitor. Binance initially agreed to look into acquiring FTX, which gave some people hope that maybe their funds could be saved. But that hope lasted about as long as it took Binance to peek under the hood and see what was actually going on. After doing their due diligence, Binance backed out of the deal faster than you could say cryptocurrency. They basically said thanks, but no thanks. This dumpster fire is too big for us to handle. And that was it. Game over. On November 11th, FTX filed for bankruptcy, not just FTX, but Alameda Research, and over 100 affiliated companies all went down together. The whole empire that Sam had built, worth $32 billion just months earlier, was officially worthless. Sam resigned as CEO and was replaced by John Ray III, a guy who had previously handled the Enron bankruptcy. And if you know anything about Enron, you know that's not exactly the kind of experience you want to have on your resume unless you're dealing with massive corporate fraud cases. But the story gets even crazier when you look at how Sam was living during all this chaos. While his customers were panicking about their missing funds, while his employees were scrambling to make sense of the company's finances, Sam was hanging out at his luxury compound in the Bahamas. This dude owned a penthouse worth tens of millions of dollars, and he was just chilling there like nothing was wrong. The penthouse wasn't just expensive, it was ridiculous. We're talking about a place with ocean views, multiple levels, the kind of luxury that most people can only dream about. And he was sharing this place with several other FTX executives, all of them living like kings while their company was collapsing around them. But the Bahamas penthouse was just the tip of the iceberg. Investigators later discovered that Sam had been using customer funds to buy real estate, make political donations, and fund all sorts of personal expenses. The dude was essentially living off stolen money while presenting himself as this responsible leader of the crypto industry. And speaking of political donations, that's another layer of this scandal that makes it even more insane. Sam had become one of the biggest political donors in America, giving millions and millions of dollars to various campaigns and causes. During the 2022 election cycle, he was reportedly the second largest individual donor to Democratic candidates and causes. But here's the kicker. A lot of that political donation money, it came from customer deposits. So regular people who thought they were investing in cryptocurrency were actually unknowingly funding political campaigns they might not have even supported. Their life savings were being used to buy political influence for Sam Bankman-Fried. The whole thing was like a massive shell game, with customer money flowing in one direction while Sam moved it around to fund whatever he wanted. Trading losses at Alameda, political donations, luxury real estate, personal expenses. It was all coming out of the same pot, and that pot belonged to regular people who trusted FTX with their hard-earned money. And the celebrities who had promoted FTX? They were suddenly in a very awkward position. Tom Brady had reportedly earned $30 million in FTX stock for his endorsement deal. Gisele Bündchen got $18 million. These weren't small side gigs. These were major financial relationships that made these celebrities millions of dollars. But when FTX collapsed, all that stock became worthless overnight. The celebrities didn't just lose their endorsement money, they lost their reputations. Suddenly, Tom Brady wasn't just the guy who won 7 Super Bowls, he was the guy who told America to trust a company that turned out to be completely fraudulent. The lawsuits started flying almost immediately. Customers who had lost money on FTX sued the celebrities, claiming they had been misled by trusted public figures who should have done more due diligence before promoting a financial platform. The argument was that these celebrities had used their fame and credibility to legitimize what turned out to be a massive fraud. Kevin O'Leary from Shark Tank had to testify before Congress about his $18 million payout from FTX. $18 million that included cash, equity, and crypto tokens that became completely worthless when the company collapsed. These celebrities went from being paid millions to promote FTX to being dragged through congressional hearings and federal lawsuits. But the real victims weren't the celebrities or the institutional investors. The real victims were the regular people who lost everything. Families who had put their life savings into what they thought was a safe, regulated platform. College students who had invested money they couldn't afford to lose. Retirees who had trusted FTX with funds they needed to survive. And Sam Bankman-Fried? While all these people were suffering, while families were losing their homes and their futures, he was arrested in the Bahamas and eventually extradited to the United States to face federal fraud charges. The trial was a complete disaster for Sam. Federal prosecutors presented evidence that he had stolen over $11 billion from customers, and the jury didn't buy any of his excuses. In March 2024, Sam Bankman-Fried was sentenced to 25 years in prison and ordered to forfeit over $11 billion. 25 years. For a guy who was once worth $16 billion and rubbing shoulders with celebrities and politicians, he's now looking at spending the next quarter century behind bars. But here's what really gets me about this whole story. This wasn't some random scam that fooled a few gullible people. This was a $32 billion company that had the backing of the world's smartest investors, the endorsement of America's biggest celebrities, and the trust of over 1 million customers. And it was all built on lies. The FTX scandal shows us that no matter how legitimate something looks on the surface, no matter how many famous people are promoting it, no matter how much money sophisticated investors are throwing at it, you can never be too careful with your hard-earned cash. Because sometimes the bigger and shinier something appears, the more fake it actually is. And for the thousands of people who lost everything when FTX collapsed, they're still fighting to get their money back, still dealing with the aftermath of trusting the wrong person with their financial futures. That's the real tragedy of this story. Not Sam's fall from grace, but the regular people whose lives got destroyed along the way. This whole mess gets 11 billion stolen dollars out of 16 billion fake net worth.